Hello! In this video I will attempt to answer the question, what made Fnaf so popular? I recently thought about this and wanted to find the answer. Of course, there is no one thing that made Fnaf popular. I think that there's many smaller things that together made Fnaf popular. Like all the small things adding up to a big thing, if you know what I mean. I'll be talking about Fnaf as a whole, but mainly the first games. I won't be talking about just Fnaf 1, but mainly Fnaf 1 to Fnaf 4. In this era I feel like Fnaf got more and more popular, so that's the era I will be talking about in this video. Like and subscribe. Let's begin. The first reason is the uniqueness of Fnaf. What do I mean by this? Well, at the time Fnaf was made, its gameplay was very unique. At the time there were a lot of horror games where you walk around and try to outrun your enemies and survive. But in Fnaf, you couldn't move. All you could was sit in your office and defend yourself from the animatronics using your doors and your cameras. However, you had a power meter, so you had to strategize and try to conserve your power whenever you can. This was really unique. Fnaf was a lot about resource management, and the fact that all you could do was sit there and wait for the enemies to come to you. It was a really unique indie horror game. There was nothing quite like it at the time. Around this time, horror games like Alien Isolation and Outlast came out. And Fnaf is nothing like those games. Fnaf was just something refreshing, not your usual horror game. Fnaf was a lot about tracking your enemies and having a plan ready on how to defend yourself from them. I feel like Fnaf being a unique game really helped it become popular because it was something different, and I feel like a lot of people liked it because of that. It wasn't like a horror game like your usual horror games where you walk around. I'm not saying that those horror games are bad, I'm just saying that Fnaf is unique. And I feel like that made it more popular. The sit and survive gameplay Fnaf offered helped it stand out among the other indie horror games, and since it was unique, I feel like a lot of people gave Five Nights at Freddy's a try, and many people liked it. The second reason is, the horror and jump scares. The Fnaf games were filled with spooky elements and lots of jump scares. And of course, it's fun seeing yourself and your friends get scared at a game. That's what made that Horror Labyrinth game so popular too. I think that Fnaf 1 is the scariest, and I feel like the horror in that game was a lot of the reason it got so popular. The creepy characters, the creepy atmosphere, and of course the loud jump scares. I feel like that is what makes Fnaf, Fnaf. So I do think that the horror aspect of Fnaf played a big role in it getting so popular. There were lots of Let's Players that played the game, got scared, their reactions to the game were entertaining, viewers found it funny and entertaining, so they wanted more, and they demanded more Five Nights at Freddy's, so in return we got more Five Nights at Freddy's and Fnaf got more popular. And that continued with each game. So I feel like the horror actually played a big role in making Fnaf popular, because it made the game more fun to watch, and even more fun to play. Indie horror games were popular at this time. Stuff like Slender and Amnesia, for example, were really popular at this time. The indie horror game scene at that time was huge, especially on YouTube. And we'll touch on YouTubers soon. I feel like Fnaf came out at a perfect time. I mean, indie horror stuff was really popular, and Fnaf got really popular too. This might sound crazy, but I don't think Fnaf would be as popular as it is if it wasn't for the horror. I think the scary brown animatronic bear jump scares did help make the game more popular. This brings me to the third reason, YouTubers. I know I touched a bit on this earlier, and by earlier I mean like maybe a minute ago, but I still have a few more things to say. A lot of Let's Players played Fnaf, and could you blame them? It got tons of views. People liked seeing reactions to the scary stuff in Fnaf, and to this day playthroughs of the Five Nights at Freddy's games are incredibly popular. But what does this mean for the game? Well, since a lot of people made videos playing the game, a lot of people got introduced to it through YouTube, and that meant that Fnaf got more attention, and therefore more fans, which increases the popularity of the franchise. There are still a lot of FNAF fans who have not played a single FNAF game, and that's completely fine. A lot of people just choose to watch their favorite YouTuber play the game, instead of playing it themselves. Let's Players help to make FNAF more popular, and I think that if it wasn't for the large amount of YouTubers that made videos on FNAF back when it came out, I don't think it would be as popular as it is. The next reason is the lore. Ever since the first FNAF game, every FNAF game has had lore of some sort. Now, to get to the really good stuff, you have to dig deeper, because a lot of the lore was hidden, and it was sort of a treasure hunt to find clues to solve the lore of FNAF. For example, in FNAF 1, you had the secret hidden newspapers that explained that there was a man who killed 5 kids, and that there were weird smells coming from the animatronics. FNAF made its lore really complicated and hard to put together, and that remains to this day. There are tons of people theorizing and trying to put together timelines and theories to hopefully one day solve the lore of FNAF. And of course, we have to mention game theory. MatPat made a ton of FNAF theories, and he still does to this day, although some of these are a little outdated. MatPat made a theory video about FNAF 1. In this video, MatPat showcased stuff like Golden Freddy and the newspapers, which I think helped people see that FNAF had a lot of story, and people began theorizing. The community doesn't always agree with MatPat's theories, but these videos are still incredibly fun to watch. FNAF's lore was made to be difficult to put together, and Scott Cawthon made it hard for the community to figure out the story of FNAF. There were a lot of secrets in FNAF. Even though this made it difficult to figure out the actual lore of FNAF, it created a big community of FNAF fans theorizing about the story, and I feel like that made FNAF more popular. Anyone could make a FNAF theory, even if they didn't have a large social media following. They could just show their theory in a Reddit post or a YouTube video. It was really cool to see so many people working on creating theories for FNAF, and I have no doubt that it made FNAF more popular, because a lot of people wanted to join in and try to solve the mystery. There are a lot of memes about how complicated the lore of FNAF is. Channels like Game Theory that tried to solve the lore of FNAF introduced a lot of people to the FNAF franchise, and many people wanted to try to solve the lore. And yeah, MatPat is forever gonna be seen as a FNAF meme because of how many videos he made about FNAF and all the jokes like Music Man. This brings us to the next reason, and that is the community. FNAF has a very large community. There are tons and tons of fan art, theories, tier lists, videos, everything. I feel like the FNAF community made FNAF popular because, well, people saw the community, whether it be discussions or the fan art, and they wanted to join in. I will also mention the fan games. An absolute ton of people decided to make FNAF fan games, and trust me, there is a lot. There are fan games that are similar to the FNAF gameplay formula, and some that are entirely different and unique. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that a lot of people played a few FNAF fan games and became FNAF fans. The fan games are free, and you can try them out to see if you like the gameplay formula of FNAF. There are many FNAF fan games, and to this day there are still new FNAF fan games coming out. The FNAF community is a very large community that had discussions, theories, fan art, fan games, everything. And I think that a lot of people became FNAF fans partly due to the community. The community, for the most part, is really accepting, unless you don't like FNAF World. That brings me to the final reason, the amount of games. So, FNAF released in August of 2014. FNAF 2 released in November. Only 3 months after the release of the first game. The first 4 FNAF games came out in the span of 1 year. A single year for 4 FNAF games. I have no doubt that because of the games coming out so often, FNAF became more popular, because, well, there was more FNAF to play, and more FNAF to talk about. I really think that the high amount of FNAF games we got contributed a lot to the popularity of the series. That's it, I don't have anything more to add to this point. This brings us to the end of the video. In conclusion, these are the reasons I personally think FNAF got so popular. Like and subscribe. Remember that this video is just my opinion. This was GameSpeaking, and goodbye.